Sometimes the biggest, most incredible stories aren't the ones shouted from the rooftops. They're the ones hidden in the details, buried in some line of text that you'd probably just skim right over. Today, we're going to see just how a single, dry sentence can unlock a massive piece of history.
Okay, listen to this line. It's from the book of Numbers. They moved from Abernah and camped at Ezion-Geber. On the surface, that sounds about as exciting as reading a grocery list, right? It's just a simple fact. They went from point A to point B. That's it.
But here's the thing. This isn't just any old travelogue. This is a record of one single stop on a legendary 40-year journey through the desert. So that begs the question, why this detail? Why was this specific move from Abernah to Ezion-Geber so important that someone carefully wrote it down and it was preserved for thousands of years? All right, let's really dig into this.
To get what's happening here, you gotta zoom out a bit. This one verse is actually just a single entry in this long, super detailed itinerary. It literally lists every single place the ancient Israelites stopped and camped during their 4 decades in the Sinai wilderness. You can think of it as an ancient historical roadmap.
Now, our verse mentions 2 places. The first one, Abernah. Honestly, it's a total dead end. Historians don't really know where it was or what it means. But that second name, Ezion-Geber, that is the master clue. Unlike Abernah, Ezion-Geber is a name that pops up again and again in history.
So what's the deal with this place? Well, Ezion-Geber was basically prime real estate in the ancient world. It was right at the northern tip of the Red Sea, which made it a perfect natural seaport. It was the gateway connecting the entire region to the super lucrative sea routes to Arabia and Africa. This place was a big deal.
And that just makes the whole thing even weirder, doesn't it? Why would a people who are literally defined by wandering through the desert for 40 years, why would they be camping at a major international seaport? What would a bunch of nomads be doing at a hub of maritime trade? It just doesn't seem to add up.
To get the answer, we have to do something a little wild. We need to jump in a time machine. We're going to fast forward a few hundred years in the timeline, long after all that desert wandering was just a distant memory.
And bam! There it is, the big reveal. Hundreds of years later, that exact same spot, Ezion-Geber, shows up again. And this time, it's the place where the legendary King Solomon builds his massive, powerful navy. The humble little campsite of his ancestors became the very heart of his naval empire.
And under Solomon, Ezion-Geber was way more than just a port. It was a full-blown industrial powerhouse. We're talking the kingdom's main naval base, a huge center for building ships, a smelter for all the copper being mined nearby, and the launch point for those famous fleets that brought back treasure from faraway lands. It just shows you the incredible potential that was sitting right there all along.
So you see the pattern here, right? This one little spot just keeps showing up again and again in the story of this nation. It starts as a temporary campsite. Then, centuries later, it's the jewel of an empire's industrial might under Solomon. And then, a century after that, another king, Jehoshaphat, even tries and fails to rebuild that very same fleet there. The importance of this one place just echoes through the centuries.
Okay, so we've kind of cracked the code on this one specific stop. But that brings us to the really big question. This isn't just about Ezion-Geber. It's about that whole long list. Why write it all down? What was the point?
Really think about it. 40 years of wandering around, and someone documented every single stop. There had to be a much deeper reason than just making a map for future travelers. What was the author trying to say by preserving this long and, let's be honest, kind of tedious list?
Well, when you really look at it, it seems there were 3 huge reasons. First, it was a monument. It was proof that God had been with them, guiding them through every single step, even when they felt totally lost. Second, it was about historical grounding. And third, it was a teaching tool, a powerful reminder for every generation to come about where they came from.
In that second point, historical grounding, this is such a cool idea. By putting real, verifiable places like Ezion-Geber into the story, a place with its own significant history, the author is basically anchoring the whole epic narrative in reality. It's a way of saying, hey, this isn't some fairy tale. This happened in real places. It gives the whole story incredible weight and authenticity.
So think about the journey we just took. We started with this one, boring-sounding line from an ancient travelogue. And by unpacking it, we've discovered that it's not a boring list at all. It's actually a powerful monument of faith, a serious work of history, and a textbook for the future, all rolled into one.
And that just makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a single throwaway place name can hide all of that meaning,
What other huge stories are just sitting there, hidden in the fine print of history, waiting for us to notice? What else have we been overlooking this whole time?